If I let you go, I will never know what my life will be holding you close to me. Will I ever see you smiling back at me? Oh yeah, that's fucking 10 seconds, Manny.
Nicky, thank you very much, man. I know it's pain. I know it's pain, but that was
Jesus
great. That was great.
Christ.
Thank you so much, man, for opening up the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm
I
looking
think
forward to this show. This week, we did we chat last week or the week before? I think it's like time's been going
I think
so
it was last
fast.
week we had a brief chat.
Yeah, it was last week, right? So it's been great connecting with so many people, and I know that we've got like a little 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon going on, and certain people know us, each other, and then that's how we got connected, and then we chatted, and then we literally chatted on the same page about a lot of things that you're going to share on the show today, which I'm really excited about having you on discussing these things because I think this is right up our listeners' avenue. A lot of the people that listen to our show are going through a lot of the things that you're going to touch upon. So I'm excited about having you. So welcome to the construction life, Nicky.
Thank you very much.
This is good.
Very excited to be here.
I want to let everybody know you're in Bali, right?
I am.
Yeah. So
Ran away
yeah, which is nice. A little, well, it's the morning for you. It's the evening for us.
7 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. So let me share the deets to everybody. We got Nicky Cullen on the show here. You can reach him at his website, which is www.nickycullen.com, and it's Cullen. And his email is nicky@nickycullen.com, and then his IG is Nicky Cullen .com on IG, and then you'll find him on all the other social medias, but definitely start with his website, and then he's got a bunch of links there to go to. And I wanted to kind of start the show to discuss, but before I do that, sorry, quick shout out to the boys at Mapei. I'm wearing their t-shirt today on today's show. I always wear a different company or persons or company t-shirts or whatever, right? So I'm wearing their tee that I recently bumped into them at the Pro Sol barbecue, which is a barbecue that I miss so much because of the funniness that was going on in the world. We couldn't have barbecues and get together, but they finally brought it back, and it was a huge turnout. So I appreciate that, and going by there and seeing everybody at the Mapei booth. But I want everybody to know, back over to Nicky now, we're going to basically, I love that you're talking about helping legends beat anxiety and stress, that you don't
Mm.
identify people, I guess, starting at the bottom. You already present people with their potential. Is that a correct way to kind of share it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are run down with anxiety, panic disorder, stress disorders, and that's not their fault. And I think a lot of the help out there is very surface level, and I think we have a proclivity towards self-help and books, and not even books, which would be way better, but try to go and get the 30-second clip on Instagram that's going to resolve all of your life's problems. And
But
so
I mean, are we not fair to say, Nicky, that all of our life's problems didn't happen overnight? All of our life's problems compounded over years and time and experiences, if they were problems or they just became situations. And do we not magnify them individually ourselves, realizing that we may not be as dire as we think we are, because we always manifest it inside of us more so than what it really is?
yeah, for sure. I think, so again, everything lives on a spectrum, right? So in my experience, like with exception, most people, this has been manifesting since childhood. So to come in and think you can just like mend these problems in a few minutes, or a quick online course that guarantees you'll never have anxiety ever again if you just listen to this hypnosis CD for 5 minutes every day for a week. I think there's a reluctance to accept the challenge at hand, and I think the media plays a role in that, and content creators play a role in that as well. But also,
Yeah. Sorry.
go on.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say, is it when you're older that you realize the difficulties in life were there for a purpose? Like, do we really want an easy life? When I look back on some of the hardships that I've had in my life and I overcame them, would I have been the better person I am today if I never experienced that?
No, not at all. I mean, like for sure, life needs to be challenging. I mean, anyone, like when you overcome a challenge, you automatically start looking for another challenge, right? I think we've got to constantly challenge ourselves. Um, I suppose there's degrees, right? Is trauma involved? Are you dealing with an anxiety disorder? And I think one of the first things to figure out is what the answer to those questions are, because a lot of people will have chronic anxiety that really limits their ability to overcome these challenges. And unless that's addressed properly, they'll start hearing stories where people are overcoming them with significant more ease than, let's say, someone who has a disorder or who has PTSD or CPTSD or something like that, something that's like way more out there on the extreme side of the spectrum.
I agree. I
Um,
totally agree. I
so
wanted to,
that's why I kind of like live with an underlying philosophy of understanding. First, understand what the problem is that you're faced with. Then you're going to be way better equipped to deal with it.
I would love, Nikki, for you to give the listeners just I guess, a brief overview of how you came into this space and what you, as much as you want to share. But I do want to let everybody know that we are going to get on this show. We are going to talk a lot about just what's really going on in people's lives and what we all go through regarding anxiety and stress and panic attacks and burning out. Basically just being a human being, right? And what we ups and downs are going on in our lives, whether professionally, personally, all kinds of levels. But I would love for you to begin with how you got into this space and what you've learned from it and what you continue to learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, I've got to go back. So I'm 42 now. I've got to go back to when I was 20 for this story to start. And obviously, in hindsight, it even goes back further than that. But there was a moment where my life completely just changed forever. I was going through, life had been great. I was a big fan of smoking weed, living with all my best friends in first year in college. Fell in love with one of my best friends. That first year in college was an amazing year. So summertime, we made a vow to stay together. We went our separate ways. I went to America with the lads. She went to Eos or somewhere in the Greek islands with the girls. Tears saying goodbye at the airport is embarrassing to think about. All that kind of stuff. And halfway through the summer, we broke up. She was just like, we're too young for such a commitment. Fair enough. I was shattered at the time, but I was still having an amazing time in America. The weed was on another level there. We were partying every night. We were under 20. So it was really just, an indoctrination into what college life might have been like in America, because it was just nonstop parties. When I came home, we got back together. Now, the trust was gone. And I never really had an emotional backbone. I never spoke about my feelings or emotions or anything like that. So I bottled it. And one evening, that there was a distance between us. It was horribly uncomfortable. In hindsight, I should have pulled her up and said what I was feeling. Not sure this is going to work anymore. Had the strength to walk away per se, but I didn't do any of that. I just kept avoiding it. And this one evening, we were all hanging out in the girls, and myself and a friend snuck off to the room next door to make a 2-liter bong. We did that, took a few hits, maybe more than a few. And that, I don't know if you kind of were into that anytime, but that will just send you to the moon.
Yeah.
So I have hysterics of laughter. He's chasing me around the house. Everything else is going on in the other room. Eventually, we get our composure, whatnot, and go back in and join the others. I sit down. Paranoia starts to creep in. And I'm here going like, oh, fuck. Like I feel peering eyes on me. What the fuck is going on? Like there's just everybody's looking at me in disgust here. And in reality, no one gave a shit. They were all smoking weed anyway. So I snuck off to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, I started to have what I now know was a major panic attack, and more so even a kind of psychosis episode. I thought I was pissing in my pants, that I could not compose myself in the bathroom. And there was no, I literally would have gone out a window if it was possible, but it wasn't. So I kind of decided I'm running. So out the bathroom, through the living room, out the front door, never to look back. I actually forgot my phone. And this was in the early days before camera phones or anything like that. But I thought I would have to call an ambulance. So I went back up the steps, rang the doorbell, immediately shit myself some more, and just took off like the road runner down the road. Walking home was absolutely horrifying. I thought blood was coming from my ears, and this is the kind of psychosis element of what was going on. I thought I was pissing in my pants. Eventually I got home. I looked in the mirror. It was the most distraught, traumatized looking kid I'd ever seen in my life. And life was never the same again. That evening, I couldn't sleep. I was just kind of like rolling around going like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And the next day I woke up with a headache. I was perpetually anxious. I had no understanding of anxiety, panic attacks, any of that. I just thought like I'd done some serious, serious damage to myself. And that kind of like just spiraled me on this journey of trying to understand what the hell was wrong with me, what had I done to myself, and hopefully what can I do to get better. And suffice to say, I saw the specialists, and their help it didn't help. It made me worse. It was kind of like eye rolling, nod of the head, do this and you'll feel better, do that and you'll feel better. I was getting brain scans, ECGs. I had a headache for 5 years. It took 5 years to learn what panic attacks were, which is mental, because in this day and age, everybody talks about panic attacks. Everybody talks about mental health, but this is 22 years ago. Self-help sections were small sections in bookstores that you'd nearly be embarrassed to be seen in.
Yeah.
But I was like sneaking in, hoping I wouldn't get caught. Like that was my mindset, just trying to get answers. Saw a book on panic attacks, and that kind of like was kind of like after 5 years where I just felt like losing all hope. That was my first bit of hope.
What was the little bit that you found in that book that gave you some sense of hope, especially after all the other, I guess, professionals were looking at you and eye rolling, and you found something?
Yeah, and they weren't all eye rolling, but like there was a lot of eye rolling in general, and you keep up on the negative, but no one told me what was wrong with me. I eventually became depressed, because I don't know how you wouldn't become depressed. So that was a diagnosis I got, but I never heard of anxiety disorders. And I've very little memory of the word anxiety being in my radar back then, which sounds stupid. It must have been, but I certainly never heard of a panic attack. That book was called When Panic Attacks, by an Irish doctor called Dr. Anya Turbiddy. She's passed away now. But so when I saw the title, I was just, scrolling the self-help section. I saw the title, I was there going, oh shit, that sounds like something I've been doing for a while. So I picked up and read the book and I read the back, and everything it said spoke to me. So I just bought it, ran home, read it all. And that was the first time. And this is why I always start with understanding. But that was the first kind of bit of concrete hope I got, because it was the first time I was convinced I had cancer in my brain, or, all sorts of brain tumors. My heart was about to explode. I had a headache for 5 years. I was looking for and I was convinced they couldn't find it, because I was getting MRIs and anything like that. There was no explanation as to why I was feeling that way.
Was the anxiety just building? Was it just building and then, I guess, transforming into more depression? And just because you were trying to find some resolution to the cause, why was this going on in my life? Why was this going on in my head? But you weren't getting any answers. You weren't finding any conclusion. And that was just contributing to amplifying the anxiety and then taking it to a depression level and then getting far worse, because this is 5 years of your life that this was going on, right? So this wasn't an overnight kind of thing.
No, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Everything just spiraled, and then the way I kind of managed it as best I was never an alcoholic or anything. Like, I wasn't drinking every day, but during the summer and the weekends or whatever, I would get so shit-faced drunk just to escape it, just give me a break for a minute. So obviously that amplifies it as well. But yeah, certainly, like, if you're waking up in the middle of the night having a panic attack, and then you're kind of like crying, going like, fuck is wrong with me? And I'm kind of feeling very isolated here, because it's hard to go out and share with people because nobody understands. So yeah, it was kind of a perfect storm. I know people get it a lot worse, but it was an amplification of everything. And yeah, not a fun time. Wouldn't go back for all the money in the world.
And I sorry, I interrupted you. You're just about to say about that book. You were concluding some thoughts on that book, that it was the first time that it did something. I guess that book is what kind of took you on a path.
I mean, in many ways, I actually wanted to reach out to the doctor, because when you're in the midst of it, you never. I guess social media wasn't a thing either, so you wouldn't think to actually send the lady a message back then, especially when you're so caught up in your own head and own troubles. But I did an anxiety summit interviewing 25 people a few years ago, different experts, and she was one of the ones that kind of popped into my head, and I was like, how cool would it be to have a chat with her?
Yeah,
20 years on, but she's passed, unfortunately, so never had the opportunity just to kind of let her know.
So how did life, Nicky, after those 5 years, how did it start to, I guess, get better or start to change or improve?
It did get better, because like they were just like, have you heard of the concept learned helplessness?
Yeah.
I'd really fallen into a pit of learned helplessness, and now I had hope. It was a glimmer, but it was like, I was amazing to come across, to go that, holy shit, like, I'm not actually crazy. The next 5 years were a real challenge as well. I still looked for help, but I found it didn't really help. I was getting CBT, and I know CBT is kind of touted as the number one therapy for anxiety disorders, etc. But don't quote me on this, but I've read, like, most of them are really quite ineffective on their own. So yeah, I was just going through the motions for a lot of years. I was in a job that I really liked. No, I didn't really like the job, but I really liked the people. And I got on with everyone in the office. So I kind of like coasted there for several years. There were obviously moments of joy and, fun, most of them revolving around parties. I did a lot of traveling. I thought, like, I traveled the world for a year and a half. I thought that would kind of like, new surroundings, all that kind of stuff, exciting things. There was hope that would just kind of like allow this stuff to magically disappear. But it was so deeply ingrained in my psyche at that stage that, in hindsight, what would I have done? I would have taken a year out of life and just go, right, there's only one thing I'm focused on right now, and that's like getting my health back. But yeah, I made a little bit of progress. They're foggy years, to be honest. But it wasn't until like I slipped a disc in my back, and that put me out of action for 6 months. So I was rehabbing that, and yoga and Pilates had kind of been on my radar. The health sections were the only sections in the papers I was reading. And I remember convincing a friend to go to a Pilates class with me. And just like in that class, there was one teacher, she was smoking hot, and there was two of us and maybe one other person. And she was making us do things, and we were both just shaking like dipsticks, laughing our asses off, going, how, like, this is so unbelievably embarrassing, kind of having to sing karaoke. But way worse when you're in the midst of a panic disorder. And I did that for a while. And then I kind of moved into yoga because they did yoga in that studio. And that was around the time I was here going, Ireland's not working out for me. You know, I need to get out of this job. I need to do something different. And Canada, one of my best friends was moving to Vancouver. Vancouver always appealed to me. I love to snowboard. So it kind of like seemed to be that perfect oasis where you could have a proper job and go to the mountains and snowboard. And I didn't realize at the time how amazing Vancouver would be during the summer months. But so when I went to Vancouver, it's on like a 2-year visa plus one. So I was there for 3 years. And that's when I really immersed myself in yoga. And that's when I started feeling significantly better.
It helped you for what reason? The breathing would have been the clarification, just your mind.
So I mean, the benefits of yoga are too long to list, but in essence, one of the things it was teaching me was how to breathe. And like, I know a lot about breathing today, but I knew nothing about it back then. So I could imagine my breathing was just constantly in my thoracic and my clavicular area. But yoga certainly would have helped teach me how to breathe fully. And I witnessed the benefits of that firsthand. Like I met someone on the street, I was here going, oh shit, I'm going to have a panic attack. And something weird happened in a moment. I just kind of took a breath. And I was very conscious of the fact that I was taking that breath, and the moment passed, and I was just there going like, Jesus, like I could not believe that I was after sidestepping a panic attack, and I was able to just have a conversation. That was unbelievable. So yoga, like, is so good for the mind. It's so good for the body. It just attacks all angles. If I had to, you know, if I was left with just one tool, I'm a massive advocate of breath work, but because of like, it's really good for your health and fitness and all that kind of stuff as well, I would go with yoga.
I know, Nick, you got a lot of programs, and I definitely want to encourage a lot of people to check out your website and then even sign up for your programs so you can work with them. But if you want to just share some of the breath work that some individuals can do on their own here and now, that could help them, whether it's in the morning getting started or in the evening or during stressful times during their days or the evenings or with family or with events like gatherings and things like that. If there's certain things that maybe a lot of individuals that are listening are not understanding the value behind this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I would just do a little bit of an assessment and like, are you a nose breather or a mouth breather?
I'm a nose
because a lot of people with anxiety tend to over breathe. So you want to like slow and steady is kind of what you're aiming for. An awful lot of people first of all, we want to breathe through our nose. That's going to be far better for your health. Even to the point where people are taping their mouth at night for who are chronic mouth breathers and over breathers. And that's making a significant positive impact in their life. So that's one thing I would look at addressing first, or just beginning to understand. Then trying to figure out, like, so we have 3 zones of breath. I don't speak as eloquently as this. So your clavicular, which is up here, and this is like where you're in a chronic kind of freeze, fight, flight all the time. And that's like, you'll have, which I imagine I was, but I can't say with certainty, but like that will have an awful lot of tension around your neck, headaches, etc. Then you have your thoracic, where most people are, but that's like associated with fight, flight within the nervous system. and then you have your kind of diaphragmatic breathing. Our diaphragms is a muscle, and it becomes chronically tight if it's not being used efficiently. So if you're like, stress causes maladaptive breathing causes stress, it becomes a chronic cycle. So getting, like, just shallow, like, deep breathing, lying down, and not using all your complementary muscles. Like, a lot of the time you'd be here going, like, you want to be like, kind of really teach yourself how to breathe using your diaphragm. And you can do that just with, like, real simple, just with your one hand on your pelvis and one hand on your chest, and just like breathing through your nose. And you can get loads of apps for free online, like Breathe Plus is one where you can put a timer on, and you can just go. So just fill up your pelvic floor and bring it all the way to your chest, and then just let it slowly out. And box breathing is another one. A lot of people, like, are obsessed with that upright posture, but if you've been in if that's going to bring with it chronic pain because of the posture you've been holding for years and what your nervous system is used to, I think, just get the mechanics down and do it lying down. You can get these specific balls and roll out. I can grab one and show you if you want.
Yeah.
I'll just grab it.
I'm always encouraging people to watch the show instead of just listen to it. As contractors, we know safety is crucial at all times, but having team members not follow, or even worse, not know safety protocols, is something that can cause stress and anxiety in the workplace. We face this and many other challenges daily, from calling the entire team just to make sure jobs are done in a safe manner, to updating team members one by one about training they need to complete regarding a certain tool or a new regulation, only to figure out who has or hasn't completed the training and document everything in messy folders. We deal with a lot, but Connecteam is here to help us out. Connecteam is a platform built for managers with a lot of different capabilities made to ease communications and operations, helping you get a clear and live overview of your business while giving your employees one central and simple app for work. Connecteam has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
So if you have something like this,
yes,
it's called well, this is a knockoff, but it's called a Gorgeous Ball, and the lady who I've learned all about it is Jen Miller, and she has an epic book called Body by Breath. But like, if you're just like lying on the ground and placing that by your diaphragm and just breathing real slow and into it, should be an epic guess, I reckon. But breathing into it real slow, that will kind of like loosen up your diaphragm. So yeah, I think one point of focus has to be about, like, because some people just cannot breathe below their thoracic. So if that's the case, then you have to focus on really loosening up your diaphragm and doing some exercise to do that. Another way is to just block your nose and your mouth and trying to breathe, but obviously you can, and you start to activate that muscle.
So it's no different than just training itself. When we're younger, we train and we actually quickly learn to isolate muscles and understand the muscle groups, and then how you can move a certain way or use a certain technique, and you can actually pinpoint that specific muscle instead of having a little bit of a cheat zone around certain muscles where you've got secondary muscles using that one muscle. But that's what everyday people do with their breath. Right, they're constantly in the same chronic kind of state of how they're doing it. They're not even realizing they're doing it.
And yeah, they don't have a clue. And like, so there's mind-based breath work and body-based breath work. And so the mind-based is more where you're doing a count. You might be doing different retentions. You inhale for 7 or 3 if that's all you're capable of. Hold for 3, exhale for 3. You're using your mind, so you're thinking about it as well. Whereas like a body-based practice, like conscious connected breath work, would be with a a clinical breath worker in the room with you, lying you down, getting you to breathe in a specific pattern where we'll remove the pause from the bottom and the top of the breath. And that puts you into more of an altered state of conscious and a neuroplastic state. So you can kind of rapidly shift blood chemistry in the brain, and that will give you access to the brain stem where a lot of your unconscious memories, are stored. So incomplete stress cycles, incomplete trauma cycles. A lot of people have massive releases through practices like that, where they can just kind of I don't know, a massive weight is being lifted off their shoulder. They just feel completely liberated. But you're also training the mind to kind of training the muscles obviously as well, but opening up your lower zone of breath. So automatically, even when you're sleeping, you'll start breathing more efficiently.
Is there, Nicky, I got a bunch of questions, and I just want to bring a lot of attention to a bunch of stuff. Is there an age limit on any of this breath work? Can you start too late, too soon, because the only reason I bring it up is that I've only been conscious of doing a bunch of things, whether that's cold therapy, whether that's intermittent, and my consciousness of how to eat and what to eat now, and then also recently breath work. I'm completely aware, and I could almost, if you want to go back to the days of getting into an accident and all of a sudden being shot up with morphine, and you feel that morphine go through your entire body. You literally can visualize the highway of that drug going through all your blood vessels. And that's the same way now with cold therapy. You can feel it going through your blood vessels, and breathing, you can feel it go through your diaphragm. You can feel it go through your muscles, and you start experiencing your body that way. So I don't know if I would have appreciated that, or if I would have done that in my 20s, if my body would have reacted the same way that it's reacting now, where I go back to the question about, is there an age limit on this? Can you be a 20-year-old, 30, 40, or a senior citizen and starting out this and still experience the same thing?
I don't think there's an age limit. There are contraindications that would need to be taken into account. And that's another completely different conversation. But high blood pressure, if a lady's pregnant, you don't want her to be doing that. There's different health concerns that you would have to take into account if you're going to do an immersive breathwork journey. But I don't see, 20-year-olds are becoming more and more health conscious than ever before. So they're doing this stuff anyway. It's the older people, like myself. Obviously, I do live in Bali, so there's a lot of this around here. Most people are kind of tapped into it on some level, but I just think around the world, it's people my age that have been dealing with anxiety and have been in a kind of state of a fight or flight state for maybe 20 years that need it more than anyone. And if you're stressed out, if you're 60, if you're 70, if you're 80, I don't see why not. My dad had some sort of weird pneumonia thing. I don't know what it was called, but it was he was properly sick for a few months there a couple of years ago around COVID time. And I'd like to see him do more of those exercises, but he's also couldn't be fucked. You know what I mean? He's doing a bit, but so there has to be an open-mindedness, I think, as well, because it is a new frontier, but there's so much science to it, and it's it is one of the most effective ways I know of to kind of really regulate your nervous system and change your state.
Yeah.
And for that, I think I almost think if you're not talking to someone about yoga and breath work and meditation, but they're in a chronically stressed state, and you're a therapist or whatever, then I don't know. I don't think it's best practice, right? Because I think you have to come at it like you have to work with the mind and you have to work with the body. Bessel van der Kolk says that in his, best-selling book, The Body Keeps the Score, as well.
Yeah.
So I don't, you might get to someone who's just stuck in their ways and have no interest, but I don't see how. And again, I'm not like 100% sure when you get up to to 80 or whatever, but
I think it's the individual. I think like you discovering that moment where you were walking and all of a sudden you were confronted by a situation and then you just discovered the breath work. It actually changed your state and helped you, and you discovered it at that very moment. I think anybody that wants to inquire about this needs to just self-discover it. They just need to experience it somehow in some fashion, whether it's the way you did or someone kind of educating them on trying this and they try it. It doesn't, it won't happen. I think you're the person that needs to make it happen. The individual,
100%,
right? So they have to, and I wanted to ask you, it's how different, or if there is a difference between men and women going through these exact same scenarios, whether it's your particular scenario or if they're going through anxiety and stress situations in their 20s and 30s and older. Are men and women different? The way they, I guess, experience these situations or the way they react to these situations?
Good question. I think women are different in that they're way more likely to actually get help.
Yeah.
And talk about their problems.
Yeah.
And men, we're fucking useless. We just like bottle it up and pretend we're hard and nothing's wrong.
100%.
And
yes.
Well, I see how that has ended up for some people in their 70s and 80s, and it's not a pretty sight. So I would love to see a world where more men and it is happening, but obviously not to the degree to which it is happening for women. But even with anxiety is such a fearful thing that there is a real reluctance for people to get help, to ask for help, because there's so much shame and all sorts of sinister shit beneath the surface that they fear they're going to have to confront, and that it's going to make things worse or whatnot because they've got bad help in the past. So there's a lot going on, but in general, I think, obviously safety maybe will be a bigger issue for women than men. Maybe they've had some bad experiences with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
That's the only kind of obvious difference that I would see. We're all facing different pressures. Women are facing, women are rightfully, succeeding in their careers independently, and a lot of them, that's great, but that brings problems for them as well. And then men are probably struggling a little bit with that, with their own identity, and trying to figure out how they can, carve out their path, and have that little internal battle with their ego, and understanding that their partner can bring as much to the table, or in some instances more than them. I think that's just the way the world is going.
I agree with you, Nicky. I also wanted to ask you, how much does the environment, like, I'm very envious that you're in Bali and you're in that part of the world. I'm in Toronto, metropolitan, and I've seen Toronto just become more and more, how do I express this? More and more of a negative, just sort of, it's a complicated city now regarding people. There isn't any personality to the city anymore. And I find myself a lot of the times, whether I'm in traffic or I'm on a job site or I'm in a social environment or there's groups of large people, I'm finding myself not liking the feelings that my body are creating. And I'm starting to go back into my history, my photo album of history or whatever, and I'm thinking about moments of crystal clear clarity where I could be sitting on an edge of a rock looking into an ocean and having an espresso and thinking how relaxed and calm I am at that moment, instead of the moment that I'm in right now, facing this complicated city that's just bombarded with people that don't really want to interact, engage, communicate. They just want to get to point B. And whether that means going through other people's point Bs, let it be at that point. So it's just, how much is the environment affecting the way we are becoming human beings?
Yeah. Is that a change you've seen in Toronto kind of throughout COVID and post-COVID, or is it?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's throughout COVID and post-COVID. We've had guests on the show talk about how it's just like this city has changed, and it's just not so much the city, but it's as much as the people have changed. People don't smile to each other as much. People don't say hello to people as much. People are more cautious about confronting or talking or communicating or helping or what have you. And I just find that that's not the case when you're in different parts of the world, that people are just people. You know what I mean? And people want to.
And that's Canada, one of the friendliest countries in the world.
Well, it hasn't been that for a while. That's the thing about it. So I think it's just, you got a lot of people, and I'm sure that you probably heard this from speaking to other people from other bigger cities, where they're just saying that I'm leaving. I'm going to go someplace else that I can be, where I can try to find my happiness. And we can get into talking about happiness, because you tackle that as well too, right? And everybody's happiness is different.
Always tackling it for myself, and it throws up challenges as does everything. To speak to the environment, like our environments play a huge role. Like if you think about it, our environment is everything, and our environment is also, on these phones.
Yeah.
So like there's elements of our environment we have control over. There's elements we don't, right? Like whether someone smiles to you and walking down one of the streets in Toronto or going into your local cafe is largely out of your control. But what you decide to consume on your phone and expose yourself to every day, and I'm very guilty of this, and I notice how much of a negative impact it can have on my mood. That's all on us, unfortunately. But I don't think that's. I'm not like those companies know exactly our weaknesses and every psychological trick, and they use it to weaponize us. But I think environment is everything, right? Like the relationships that you have in your life, probably, I doubt anything will have a better and bigger impact on your quality of life than the relationships you have in your life. With regards to Bali, and I always I'm not a big social media guy. I'm not very comfortable with it. I've always steered away. Like there's something in me that goes, fuck, I don't want people thinking I'm living because I know that kind of sentiment, especially in Ireland, is like, oh, he just fucking run off to Bali. He's just having the time of his life. He's just surfing every day. And you're just here going like, it's not like that at all. It's a very different environment when you're living here. There's an awful lot of people. And one of the biggest things that when I reflect is like, I don't regret leaving because I was in such a bad place. But I would say Vancouver is probably where I was the happiest, because I had such a structured routine there. I walked everywhere. It was beautiful. I did a load of yoga. I had a few great friends. But I wasn't like splitting forks between multiple groups or anything like that. So, when you move away, you give up all of that. And then you've got to start again. And that's no easy thing. So there's also so many assholes in Bali.
Yeah. Well, there's assholes everywhere, right? And
there's assholes, but I think Bali could take the throne, honestly.
Well, really, yeah.
Oh, I reckon. Well, in the area I live, like not actually Balinese, they're some of the loveliest people in the world, but like there's a lot of assholes just Yeah, there's a lot of dickheads in Bali. I'll say no more. But like, there's a lot of great people as well. But you
I
got to navigate all of that as well.
yeah,
And it's
I will.
busy and traffic is crazy. So
I will
there's a
say
lot of
that
distractions.
I've had some of the nicest, quietest moments in Ireland. Like I had some nice moments in Dublin, but I had far better moments in Wexford and other places, other smaller towns when I kind of
Yeah,
just took off and disappeared for a bit. And I had some of those really nice, quiet moments of my life there.
yeah,
And I mean, and this was November. This was the end of November, early December. So as you know, it's not the best of weather, but I never even saw the weather as a negative. I just like it was just being at the right place at the right time at a certain state in my life that it just
yeah,
became a calmness that I really appreciated. And so
yeah,
I guess it goes back to it's not necessarily so much the place, it's the state that you're in as an individual. Maybe that's why
yeah, for
Vancouver
sure.
was connecting with you so much. And I'm sure that a lot of people don't like Vancouver or whatever. But I think it's just you have to look at who you are as an individual and where you are in the
Yeah,
world. And then that, if you can find that calmness, it will work for you.
yeah. I mean, I love Ireland, and it is like, I'm not a major fan of the weather. I guess coming from a Toronto winter to an Irish winter, it's actually maybe refreshing. But I'd be there on the other side. I'll take the snow all day, any day.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much beauty to Ireland, and it is quite peaceful. And when you go to those touristy spots along the coast, and like people are so friendly. So like I love, love, love Ireland, and that love for Ireland has only grown. Do I see myself going back there? I'm not so sure. But for me, it kind of like a good way to figure this out for an individual, and this is the kind of like the framework that I would work through if I was working with someone, is like you have to know your values. You have to understand your needs, how you're currently meeting your needs, what needs matter most to you, and then what changes can you make in your life so you can start meeting your needs in a healthy manner that's aligned with your values, nobody else's. So for some people, that's New York City. Like, I just want to be in amongst the hustle and the bustle, and like they value significance and they value materialistic things, and that's cool. Whatever works for the individual. But I think in this age of social media, and like you're bombarded with messages telling you how to live your life, and people, you know, assuming their ideals are your ideals, uh, and it's a breeding ground for confusion.
Yeah.
And I think a good way is to get real clear on who you are and what you value and what you want from your life, and then you got to make some decisions.
What's the best way to
And,
sit down
and
and
there's also some shit like there's cons to everything, right?
yeah.
Like
I was just going to ask you, Nikki, what's the best way for someone to actually sit down and discover their values? Because maybe they don't know where to begin. They probably don't realize what they're searching for.
um Well, I mean, there's loads of different worksheets just available online that will like a good starting point just to
Okay.
go through, and like you just here go, okay, what really works for me? And then like deeper work is to kind of like maybe step in and do it with someone. And then just like understanding human need psychology as well. Again, like you probably get books on this and stuff or worksheets, but it's just like once you understand how you're meeting. So people struggling with anxiety and stress and panic disorder, whatever it might be, are so often our behaviors we don't know are meeting are driving our anxiety, but we're also meeting our needs. Um, so they've become maladaptive, and unless you can point that out to someone, it's very, very difficult to change. Like what's that saying? Neurons that fire together wire together. In essence, that's just basically saying that like if you're not like if your action is to not do something and you say no once because you fear it might not work out, well, the likelihood of that being your default throughout life increases exponentially. So, you have to understand these areas, and there's shit you should say no to, but there's shit you should say yes to. And being able to understand your values, what it is you want from life, your greater goals, what's really meaningful to you. Are you really looking for a family? Are you looking, whatever it may be? And then you can start making decisions and create your own guiding principles that bring you to the lights, if you will.
Do you work, Nicky, with, or do you prefer working with couples? Have you been approached by couples coming to you and then asking to work with them, or you prefer working with individuals?
No, I don't think I've ever worked with couples. I only work with individuals. So often, obviously, there's tension in relationships, and you're here going like, "Shit, I wish I was working with the other one because that's the person who needs to be doing the work."
Yeah.
Like so. There would have been times where I like would offer. I'd be happy to get on a call with a partner to help. Because sometimes people really struggle to explain, or the partner really struggles to understand, right? And I think this is a really important part, because now we're coming back to environment again.
Yeah.
If you have a partner that's dismissive or isn't understanding, and they could be dismissive because they're an asshole, but they can be also a really loving partner who just doesn't understand, right? If it's the asshole, I'd get rid of them personally. That's like, I just don't see why you would spend your life with someone who's making you feel this way, because they are really the driving force behind your anxiety when it gets to that stage. But if it's someone that really loves you, but just doesn't really understand what you're going through, and as a byproduct of that, isn't offering up the most help, then having a conversation with a third party who can explain it without emotion, right? Because the individual is going to be like
full of emotion,
really in a high state of emotion, like
yeah.
You don't understand, fucking, like, and it could blow over. Whereas I do understand, and I'm not going to be phased by that. So it's like, and that's just, it's not like there's no brilliance in that for me. It's just like, it's just what comes with the territory. So I think there's advantage of certainly would recommend couples therapy and all that kind of stuff, but it's not something I wouldn't do, but it's not something that I do either.
I was just
But
curious
I do
on how
believe
they
that
would
a
be.
lot of people would benefit greatly from bringing their partner at least to one session to kind of like to hear it from someone else.
Are you seeing, Nicky, that like I'm hearing this from a lot of people where there is a lot of disconnect going on from significant others? So whether you're at different stages of your life, and whether he or she is the provider and someone else is there in that relationship, I'm just seeing that obviously we've heard that the number one reason why relationships end is because lack of communication. And so they don't want to, like, whether he's having a problem trying to, first of all, bring this anxiety, this stress to the forefront and have a conversation with their partner, while she might be a little more willing to actually have that conversation, but then he might not want to be listening. So it's like you have this confrontation going on between two people. So I guess you have to first assess the individuals and see where they're coming from, and to find out, is it him? Is it her? Is it they? Are they right to be together? Is it just because of their mindset on where they are in their lives? It could be their age, it could be their status, it could be their social media, it could be a bunch of factors and things like that. So it's like, how do you navigate through all those waters? How do you, like, I guess it starts off with one person in that relationship realizing, I'm not on a path of happiness. Why am I not on a path of happiness? And I just feel like maybe I should be a lot happier than I am right now. So am I looking internally or externally trying to figure out what is causing me from getting to my happiness? You know what I mean?
It's an interesting question. It's so complex and nuanced. And like I definitely don't see myself as an expert in relationships. Ask any of my exes, but
I say the same thing, Nicky. I say this. I always say that I've always had failed relationships. That's all until the next one starts.
Well,
Right?
but like there's you can get down to the nuts and bolts and understand attachment theory, and you might have someone who's anxiously attached and someone who's avoidant. So that's you're going like, okay, we're up against it here, but do we love each other? Do we really want to work this out? I just listened to an amazing book called Evolution of Desire, basically just that looks back ancestrally to and like different tribes all over the world, and just to kind of understand human male female relationships and what women want, what men want, and for me, I think a lot of the time is like people don't feel heard in their relationship. There's the behavior is dismissive. The other person is maybe on the defense immediately if anything's breached, or what if say if you have a lady who wants to have a discussion with her husband about this problem and how he might be contributing to her anxiety, but she's saying it in a loving way and not in a way that's accusing at all. And then there's the defense mode. And like humans are so complicated, as you know, right?
Yeah.
You do these episodes, you speak to a different person every day, and you're kind of obviously a very curious person yourself. There's so many layers to this shit, and we do things that hurt those around us, and I think we take people for granted, and we don't tell people we love them enough, or we say it, but we don't. Where's the meaning behind it? We don't show it through our actions. So yeah, obviously communication is at the cornerstone of this, and I think I know what was something that really kind of upsets me is I know that I've spoken to a lot of people over the years that want to get help, that need to get help, and it's their partner that actually goes, "Oh no, you can't afford that," and it's not about that.
No.
It's just like that won't work. That's stupid. That pisses me off so much, because if someone's really suffering, like maybe that won't help, but maybe it will. But the one thing that's for sure is that they need help. And
as contractors, we know safety is crucial at all times, but having team members not follow, or even worse, not know safety protocols is something that can cause stress and anxiety in the workplace. We face this and many other challenges daily, from calling the entire team just to make sure jobs are done in a safe manner, to updating team members one by one about training they need to complete regarding a certain tool or a new regulation, only to figure out who has or hasn't completed the training and document everything in messy folders. We deal with a lot, but Connecteam is here to help us out. Connecteam is a platform built for managers with a lot of different capabilities made to ease communications and operations, helping you get a clear and live overview of your business while giving your employees one central and simple app for work. Connecteam has a free plan and a 14-day free trial. Try them today by checking out the link in the show notes.
Everybody's life stands to get better when they get the proper help. So that really pisses me off, and it's unbelievably common.
Is the dismissive nature from the partner as a result of the partner?
Yeah, just shake it off, stop complaining.
But is it an unwillingness to actually confront real problems that they don't want to actually surface? Is that the reason why they might?
Maybe I just go ahead and think they're assholes, but okay. There's
simplify it. Yes,
I'm not talking to them, so but there is a lot of partners out there who could help themselves out by being a hell of a lot more supportive to the person they supposedly love who's going through a rough patch. And that's all it is. But it'll get rougher if they don't change their behaviors, or the marriage will break down. But nothing good comes from that. Like nothing good, unless the person eventually steps away. And that's arguably not a great thing either.
Yeah.
So I'm not advocating for people just to fucking break up with people and all that kind of stuff, but like sometimes you're just here going like, yeah. Well, also when a person gets control of their mind back, they might realize that that person hasn't treated them well all the while. So yeah,
There's so much,
I don't
Nicky,
know.
that you bring up, you talk about, and it all contributes to all of us, and it's all relevant to all of us. And one thing that you brought up that I paid attention to our first conversation that we had was genuine laughter. Like,
Oh yeah,
I don't know people today that are genuinely laughing. Like there's that kind of fake presented social media laughter. It's almost like a
yeah.
laugh track from an old 1950s, 60s TV show or something like that. And that's not genuine laughter. But and I'll just speak for me personally. I can't tell you the last time that I genuinely pissed my pants crying, laughing. Like I can't. I got to probably go back to my 20s and 30s when I would saran wrap friends' cars. I would try to do certain practical jokes and tie beer cans to the bottom of an axle and let someone drive off. You know what I mean? With sparks flying. Like I don't do those things anymore, whether it amused me or what have you. But as we get older, I guess, and the stressors of life, and I guess we chip away at our confidence, and we somehow feed our anxiety, and we feel our insecurities, we forget to laugh. And if you can share some things that we can possibly do where we can rediscover genuine laughter.
Yeah, good question. I think like personality plays such a pivotal role here. And obviously the like if you're comfortable making jokes, or a lot of people just that's not their personality type. But I do believe that like a lot of people like yourself, I mean, maybe you want to set up a YouTube and start, wrapping saran wrap around cars and doing practical jokes in your friends and getting a laugh out of them. But obviously do like life does get significantly more serious as we grow up. But I find if you're like once the stress takes over, the anxiety takes over, it gets even more serious, and then you're pulled into a trap of self-help of sorts where it's like the ultimate goal, like they're just preying on your insecurities constantly while selling perfection. And we know that's a massive problem in itself. So life gets even more serious and even more stressed out. So I think, like just making sure that, I don't know, doing activities that like will inhibit laughter, hanging out with the lads and, like doing something where you're going to make asses of yourself, like your karaoke thing or whatever, like where you're going to make asses of yourself, or you're going to be in that. And it's weird that you have to say this, but you almost need to be in a safe place to say inappropriate shit. Because for me,
Yeah.
I laugh a lot with some of my friends, and it's like we say inappropriate shit that like I wouldn't apologize for, but I also wouldn't put it on social media
Yeah.
because, you'd be canceled or whatever. But like, it's not funny just to conform. It's like, there's no humor in that. So I think, like just taking a minute to understand first and foremost, what brought you laughter back in the day? Who are your friends that are still laughing? What can you do with them to invoke more laughter? What little practical jokes are you maybe that you used to do that were funny that you just haven't thought about doing because you're supposed to be a responsible adult or whatever story you're telling yourself at this moment in time.
You can still be a responsible adult and have some serious
Oh yeah,
laughter in your life, right? You
yeah,
can just,
100%. You
yeah,
should.
yeah.
But yeah, and like it's easier said than done if you're in a constant state of stress and that's all you can think of. So you really have to put effort to break the mold. And there's I think the people that you're around play a very important part. There's people I laugh with all the time, and there's people I don't laugh with all the time. But
Is it
nothing
Nicky?
against the people I don't laugh with, but
Is it fair to say, because I'm just making this assumption that if you're not trying to improve yourself, then there's other forces that are basically feeding what's, I guess, taking you away from what you want to achieve. When I say that, I mean, like, if you're consciously trying to improve yourself, whether you're in a relationship or not, and you want to genuinely be happier, you want to be able to control your emotions, you want to reduce your stress, you want to control that anxiety. But if you're not working on that as an individual, then is it as easy as saying the devil on your shoulders feeding all of those things and contributing to making those larger in your life? Is that what's going on?
I'm not sure. See, again, there's so it comes down to the individual for me, right? You know,
Yeah.
like and your personality makeup. I think understanding your personality makeup is critically important, and just like something like the Big Five that measures your personality across openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and agreeableness can kind of give you a grasp and allow for some much needed self-compassion and acceptance. Um, I think like some people thrive in the I always have to be making myself better. I always have to be making
Yeah.
myself better. Every day I've got to be doing this, I've got to be doing that. And they end up with like lists as long as the Nile, and that's stress inducing in itself. So it's really there's a fine line between developing yourself and trying too hard to the point that it actually backfires, and you're causing more stress, you're causing more anxiety in your life because you're just trying to do everything right, and we're not perfect. We fuck up. We like go out with the lads, take a few days off. Like sometimes I'll tell people that I work with, like, just stop for a minute. You're just trying too hard right now. Give it a break. Don't do anything for the next few days. And they come back and they feel refreshed. It's like we take a break from everything else, but apparently you're not allowed to take a break from constantly developing yourself. We're all gonna fucking die soon.
Yeah.
I honestly believe a lot of people, and maybe myself included, are gonna get to their deathbed and go, shit, I wish I didn't try to be so fucking perfect all the time. And that's what that is. It's like we're trying to attain a goal of perfection because not all self-help, because like obviously perfection is talked about the downside to it, but it's really preying hard on your insecurities and fears. And like that clickbait shit that will just suck you in. You can't help but click.
Yeah.
End anxiety forever.
Yeah.
Never be calm 100% of the time. Who the fuck wants to be calm 100% of the time? These are not, and these are very credible people that are putting out this clickbait. How to turn 1,000 into 100 billion. You're here going, Jesus Christ, does anyone really need that money? But
No,
now
they
kids are
don't.
walking around going like, I've got to be a billionaire. A millionaire is enough for them. They've got to be a billionaire.
Give it another 10 years, Nicky, and you're going to start hearing them say, I want to be a trillionaire.
Yeah.
That's just going to happen. And is that a path to happiness? It's not, in my opinion, it's not, right? But that's,
Well,
yeah.
by default, everybody, like maybe 2 out of millions win. Like, I don't want to play that game. I'd rather be on the other side, like just with kind of normal people that are having a laugh. Like the research is on the happiness research is, obviously success and money and all that kind of stuff plays a role, but it doesn't play nearly as big a role as we like to think it does. Experiences do, friendships do, and all of that kind of stuff gets pushed to the side because I think one of the individual we are becoming, there's research to this, we're becoming, and I speak to America, like Europe, Western countries are becoming more individualistic than ever before,
Yeah.
as our happiness rates drop, as our anxiety, depression, suicide, all that kind of shit increases. Everything's like, oh, just sort it out yourself. We're not like coming together as a community and really helping each other on
It's a
I don't
recipe.
know.
It's a perfect recipe. I know that on your website you've got dozens and dozens, or if not hundreds, of different blogs that you've written, right? And on all kinds of stuff that we talked about, and even more stuff that we're going to still talk about. But I mean, there ways of actually beating stress and actually beating anxiety? Are there ways that you've discovered where is it beating it or is it managing it?
And again, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like it depends. I don't like the beating it would imply that it will never come back. You know what I mean? Like
But I
so,
go back to the beginning of
but
the show where I say that, do you want it to completely disappear? Do you really want your life to be perfect utopia for the rest of your days? Or do you want these subtle challenges in your life, whether it's like
yeah,
building a family, building a business? Do you want these hurdles? Because then that's your thought process. You can think about overcoming and achieving this, which will make you a stronger person. So I think that you don't want this to be beaten. You want it to be there, but you want to achieve, you want to overcome it, right?
yeah, for sure. I mean, we want challenges in life. We want success. We want reward along the way. So it's like with things like PTSD, CPTSD, the extreme end of the spectrum. I'm not talking about any other mental illness, and then like panic disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder. Those people, they want it gone because it's debilitating on a daily level, and it's
Yeah.
actually makes achieving your goals significantly more difficult. Now, they, I think they have, and again, it depends on the individual. Some people, I believe, can absolutely clear it 100%. I've seen it. Other people are going to like, will significantly improve their lives, but it might take 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. But like I think everybody can significantly reduce their stress and anxiety in a relatively short time frame. That's not with like that's not being that's with healthy levels of patience, not these batshit expectations that are being fed to people. And I think using the word normal here sounds a little bit derogatory, but people who don't have these disorders but are highly stressed, I think you can help them very quickly shift their perception and regulate their nervous system. So the stress in their life is adaptive as opposed to being maladaptive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. I was gonna ask you, how do people, as they get older, they start experiencing more loneliness, even though they're surrounded by lots of people. They just feel as if they're not in that space. Do you know what I mean? Like you're getting, and I'm seeing this through a lot of men. As they get older, they've provided for their family, they've built a business, they're highly skilled, they're successful, I guess in society's terms. They've achieved all these notches of life, but yet
Mhm.
they still feel extremely lonely. They just don't
Yeah.
understand how. Is it because they really can't communicate with someone, whether that's their partner, their children, their coworkers, their friends? They can't really communicate. Is it just a lack of communications that's contributing to a loneliness feeling inside of them?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted again. It's probably there is likely an underlying shame that they don't want to admit that they're lonely because there's a vulnerability in that they don't like. And I think that's the kind of first hurdle to overcome, even if it's, you know, if you say, if the person in this example has the successful career, has the family, has all of that kind of stuff, then I would imagine the first step is to having a conversation with their partner about that. And you know, some will feel comfortable, but then you got to kind of step in and do something about it. And then, like, you know, for lads, as you know, from 30, 40, 50, 60, it's not easy for them to turn around and say to a friend they're lonely, because that friend might say, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think people are becoming more and more compassionate, and I think it's worth you putting in, especially if you have all your other ducks aligned. I think it's worth putting in significant effort to fix this, and that might be saying, you know, inviting friends over for dinner, or, you know, like I was on the phone to my dad the other day. I think he butt dialed me and I called him back, and he was there, like he was in with the neighbor, and they were just like eating scones and having coffee and, you know, having a crack. They're both retired, you know. So it's like, you kind of like, you have to make it an effort, and there has to be a level of acceptance that, you know, you're not, again, are you introvert, extrovert? You have to understand yourself, but what gets you excited? Where do you feel, you know, in the best company? Where do you feel, I don't like that I felt heard, because I think it's overly used in the spiritual community, but like, where do you feel like you're in really good company with people that whose presence you really enjoy? And if you don't have that, then you've got to get out and start looking for it. And there are ways to do that, but like, you have to, you know, it's scary ask a girl out, it's scary ask a guy out. You know, like, if that's what you want, and you just like, we all procrastinate on this stuff. I do too. But, you know, like, I think back to the happiest times in my life. It's like where I'm like, I had those solid friendships, and, you know, I was also going out dating quite a lot and all that kind of stuff. So I think, you know, we just gotta have to realize what activities, you know, activities are great, whether you want to join a run club that, you know, they meet and they all high five each other and go, yay, we just went for a run, let's have a coffee now and a scone or whatever. And it takes time. I think we just have very little patience in this world, but you're not going to manufacture a new deep relationship with someone you don't know when you're older, unless you're prepared to give it time and to nourish it and to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and go, hey, do you want to get lunch?
I do love, and I haven't read it yet, but you have a blog where it's titled Dealing with Assholes. And I would just love to get 2 cents from you about how to deal with assholes, because there's assholes everywhere you go, especially in construction. There's quite a bunch of assholes, whether they're paying you or working with you or supplying you. There's assholes there. So how do you deal with assholes?
Um, I mean, I don't know if I'd probably let them bother me more than I should. So I wrote that blog a few years ago. I probably need to look over it again. And I think I was inspired to write it from a book. But like, you know, I also think that, like, the more you learn about psychology, you can really kind of corner yourself as well, because you can kind of start to pick up on narcissistic traits and stuff. But there's limits. There's just behaviors in people that I'm unwilling to accept, and it doesn't even have to have anything to do with me. If they're the type of person that I deem is putting up a front and making themselves out to be this wonderful, you know, does all the virtue signaling, and I don't really want them in my life. I'm very bad at confrontation. I must be honest with you, Manny. When like, I'll do it, but it makes me feel very uncomfortable. So but one thing I'm comfortable with is like, just like making my circle smaller.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, like, it depends on the asshole. Do you have to confront it? Just like being real, like if they have a position of power or authority over you, then that that's a different dynamic, right? So you got to play the game a little bit. But it's even if it's even playing field and you're here going like, listen, dude, you're doing this, and I don't like I don't agree with it. I'm not cool with it. Um, Stop. It makes me feel like this. You know, sometimes like we'll all take the piss out of people. I take the piss out of people all the time, and I get the piss taken out of me all the time. And if one friend, if I say something and a friend takes offense to it, and he confronts me, I'll own it. Like that has happened, and I'll just own it and apologize, right? But um,
Well, that's the first step, is that he is a friend or she's a friend because they're confronting you. If they really didn't give a crap about you or care about you at all, they wouldn't confront you about it. They would just let it be and move on, right? And I was like, you were basically going to where I was headed with how to deal with assholes, is that as I get older, I quickly realize that how do you deal with an asshole is you just don't deal with it. You don't make
yes,
it a part of your life. I'm not a confrontational person either, right? It's just, I don't I don't place myself in that situation. If I know that I'm not comfortable in this situation or the way this person is, whether treating me or someone around me, I just confront them and I just ask them to stop. If they don't, then that person's no longer a part of that circle or that environment. So I walk away from that environment, and then I'm
yeah.
not a part of that. So that's how I'm dealing with those assholes these days.
Yeah, I have a like yourself. I probably have a very low tolerance for bullshit and putting up with shitty
Yeah.
behavior from people. I've
Yeah.
read of it, but maybe sometimes I can that can there's a negative side of that needs to be looked at again. I was the algebra of happiness or something, and it was like people who are forgiveness is plays a major role in long-term happiness, like the ability to, because we're all going to fuck up.
Yeah.
So as long as like, and that was kind of interesting. I was here going like, shit, there's a couple of people that I just don't want nothing to do with, but I never really confronted them or whatever. I maybe I need to like think about this forgiveness element a little bit more. um
I, I do want to say, I want to go briefly back to breath work. And I just realized when you were talking a lot about it, that some of the better relationships that I've had were the better sleeping nights that I had. I would sleep better. I would breathe better. I would wake up in the morning clearer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like either I was in unison with that other person and they were unison with me, that we were, and then I look back and I'm like, some of the other relationships that I knew that were not healthy and probably on the verge of toxic and just going into a negative kind of environment, you'd wake up and you'd have like a stuffiness inside of you. So obviously it was clear that during that evening you're sleeping, you weren't breathing properly. You weren't breathing healthy. And so I think that there's a connection somehow there. And I'm
yeah,
noticing this
wow.
because I'm in a relationship right now where I'm having good night's sleep when I'm sleeping next to that person. And I'm like, okay, so even though there's shit going on in life and things are going on and there's stressors and there's all kinds of anxiety going on in everybody's life, I'm still getting a good night's rest because of the person that
Yeah.
I'm with in that life, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. I like the person you're with is going to have a major impact on your nervous system, and your nervous system is going to have a major impact on your sleep. I like that's really interesting to hear that you said that. I've not heard someone actually have that kind of level of awareness, although
Well,
um
I'm at almost
they're
52 and
able to
I'm just
track it and
discovering
go,
it now, right? So I'm maybe a little
yeah,
late to the game or whatever, but
yeah.
I don't
But
know.
it makes total sense, right? So if you get all the good endorphins and stuff like that from being intimate and just close to someone that you really care about, so that's gonna help induce a better night's sleep.
How do we, this is something that's always affected me and I try to fix it when I can, is focus. Like, how do we clear our focus? Like, how do I can, like, we talked a lot on this show about we're bombarded by the phone and, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And it's just a confusion and all. It's like there is so much noise, life noise, white noise, that how do
Mm.
we like push that to the side and stay focused on where we truly want to, where we're supposed to go? How do we focus
Yeah,
on that, right?
it's a tough one, isn't it? I find like, okay, so again, I'm guilty of everything here as well, but like I'll talk you through
Yeah.
a good day of what I might do. Um, I I don't bring electronics into the room as much as possible. I can be often guilty of bringing in the laptop just to, watch a show or something and fall asleep that way. But I like to read a lot as well, so just been focused more on that. Um, the night before, I'll prepare my day and I'll write down everything that I'm going to do, and I'm going to assign, like, okay, I'm working on this, so I'm going to give this 90 minutes. I'm going to give this 30 minutes, of, whatever. I have this call here, I have that call there. Um, and when I'm doing those timed things, like my phone's on do not disturb. Now I've got some friends that are way better at this than me, to the point where you're actually annoyed with them because they're uncontactable pretty much all of the time.
Yeah.
Like they just like WhatsApp is always off, everything's always off, and it comes on in the evening. Um, that doesn't work for my business, but um, and probably just doesn't work because I'm a weak man. But the temptation is too great.
It is a double
Um,
edge, eh, Nikki? Because we're using digital platforms to kind of
yeah.
communicate and work with people and try to get our messaging out there. And but we don't want to be consumed. Like we just don't want to be sucked into this digital platform. We just want to kind of contribute to the content, but then get out of it. But it's hard not to get consumed by it, right?
Oh, 100%. I absolutely get lost in rabbit holes all the time. And it's cheap dopamine is everywhere. I read this amazing book called Dopamine Nation recently, that it just kind of explains like our behavioral impulses, and how the world we're living in is kind of like setting us up to fail in many aspects in that arena. But I know that, like, if I sit down to write in something like that, I'd take some lion's mane mushroom,
Mm-hmm.
which is good for focus. Now I don't know if I'm dealing with a placebo here or not, but it works. And when I take it, I feel to like I get into that zone. Um, and you have to be flexible as well to kind of like, I think self-compassion is a massively important skill that most people need to practice in this world, because we're brought up to be pretty harsh on ourselves, and that's one of the greatest predictors of mental well-being. So often I'll fill my list with stuff that's just like the day's getting on, and I'm here going like now I'm trying to play catch up and stuff like that. So kind of have to have the kindness to say, it's all right, you get it done tomorrow, and just keep tipping away.
I'm the exact same way, Nikki. I'm just like these days I'm trying to do less time in front of the screen and more focused time when I am in front of the screen. So then I'm trying to do where if I sit down, I'll tell myself, okay, you got this many tasks for the next 25, 35 minutes, whatever, and that's it. Once that comes, then you take a break and you disappear and you stop looking at a screen, and then just either smell the roses, go outside, or just breathe or something like that, right? And then go back and focus. I think that a lot of people would just stay stuck, and they're just tunnel vision on technology, and then I think that they're just
Yeah.
deteriorating themselves by doing that, when they should consciously be telling themselves, stop, take a break, and come back when you're ready to come back.
Yeah, and I will
We're
feel
guilty. We're
that,
both guilty of
like,
it. Yeah.
I will feel that stress within my body. It's quite visceral. So I like, if I might lie down and do yoga nidra, I'll go for a walk during the middle of the day. Um, anything just to break it up. And by doing that, I noticed that like I'm firing way better in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm almost always firing better in the afternoon, but I try to do everything in the morning. pisses me off.
Nicky, this has been great. We just got to do the 12 questions. We're coming up to the end of the show. I love the many things that we talked about, and I wish that I'd love to get you back on one day and we'll just continue this conversation. I believe in a lot of the stuff that you're doing and how you're helping people. And I think there's a lot of people, especially our listeners that listen to the show, that they need these. They basically need these, that they need to confront these. I think that right now, what I've learned from doing the show for so many years is that there's a new type of tradesperson in construction now, and they're more willing to possibly speak to people that they somewhat connect. And whether that's a person that's right next to them on a job site, or if that's a person halfway around the world and they're listening to them on a podcast, they feel comfortable bringing up the fact that here's what's going on in my life. And I just don't really have anybody that I can speak to about it. And so I'm hoping that I can speak to you about it, and then they can bring it up. And then hopefully it improves them, it improves their relationships, it improves their family dynamic, it improves their circle of friends, it improves everything. And then they get set on their path of happiness, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, appreciate that, man. I've had a blast, and I know, like, I obviously agree. It's a scary thing for people to kind of step into, but like, it's, it's nowhere near as scary when you actually do it, and you realize pretty quickly that the benefits are, they're not minuscule by any stretch. They can't, you could potentially just, like, by just seeing things in a different light, completely transform your life.
100%. So I just wanted to let everybody know the deets again. Nicky Cullen here. His website is www.nickycullen.com, and it's nicky@nickycullen.com. And then on IG, Nicky Cullen, DOT.com on IG, and then also find him on other platforms. But definitely go to his website first and then reach out to him. And you're more than willing to invite anybody just to send them a message and get conversation going with you, and then consider looking at some of the programming, all the programming, and definitely give you. How many blogs do you have there? Like, you've written how many blogs now? It's got to be.
Yeah, I like to write, but I don't really write. I'm trying to write a book at the moment. There's quite a few. There's quite a few blogs there, but blogging's kind of dead. So I did some podcasting and stuff back in the day. I kind of, like, it was fun. I should have kept it up, but
blogging's not dead, Nicky. It's not, man. People are appreciating. Yeah, I think they're. Well, you've heard of Substack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Substack's trying to bring it back and trying to make it grow, and it's kind of working. It's kind of funny. I had someone reach out to me from Alberta here, and he actually reached out and he was talking to me about, he's considering starting a blog and if I would support him. And I'm like, in a heartbeat. Let me know when you roll it out. Let me know what it's all about, and I'll do a shout out and I'll let everybody know about it. And he wants to do blogs about construction and a process and how to handle clients and how to work with clients, how to work with other people.
Yeah.
And he wants to basically give a truthful representation of what the industry is all about. And I'm like, in a heartbeat, I will share that. I'll talk about that. And
a medium's huge as well.
Yes.
Fucking forget about what I said. It's not. Well, I want to focus my energy on my writing energy on a book.
Yes.
And that's kind of like a book, kind of it's not self-help, but it's just a kind of like basically a memoir of all the fuck ups I made that other people would probably be better off not making.
Life lessons, man. Good luck. Is it your first?
Well, I did a little one before, yeah, but I wrote 80,000 words a few years ago, and then it's pretty embarrassing shit. So I was here like, but I picked it up again. I just kind of maintaining the habit.
It's only embarrassing if you don't get it out and have anybody read it. Then it's embarrassing shit. If it gets out there and people read it, fuck with who they think, right? So let me share the 12 questions. You ready for this, Nicky?
Yeah.
What everyday sound brings you joy and comfort?
Oh, the ocean.
What is your favorite beverage?
Whiskey. Irish. Not too much anymore.
Moderation. What is your least favorite tool?
I'm thinking Instagram. but you're talking about
It could,
construction.
no. It could be any tool. It could be any tool at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Instagram, I agree with you on that one. What turns you on creatively?
Books, writing, good writers.
Old or new?
Bukowski, old.
What word or concept do you find overused or meaningless these days?
Oh, too many. Vulnerability, authenticity, integrity.
They're
All the ones
they're
that-
easily used and not understood.
Well, they're used as manipulation a lot of the time. They're good words if they're used correctly, but
Yeah.
a lot of people just taking the piss.
What is your favorite curse word or phrase?
Cunt.
You're Irish.
I don't say that one. I reserve that one for friends.
What's your favorite vehicle in the world?
Uh,
Could be anything.
I care less about vehicles now, but it would be an Aston Martin.
There we go. Old or new?
Old, new.
New. Yeah, you know what? They are changing nicely. They are nice vehicles. What do you miss from your childhood?
Being free of worry.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. What term or phrase resonates with your core of who you are?
Oh, shit. What term or phrase resonates with the core?
Of who you are.
I have no idea. Did I miss that one?
No, it's fine. We can come back to it if it comes back to you.
Yeah, come back to it.
If you could
Don't know if I
master,
can.
if you can master a skill outside of your own expertise right now, what would it be?
Something artistic. Oh, if I can master surfing.
Surfing. If you could speak with an historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Churchill, and I just want to sit down and drink and chat with him and get
Was
inside
it?
his
Yeah,
head
it was
and-
stogies. Yeah, and have a stogie with him. Just
Yeah.
a whiskey and a stogie. That's all it was.
Yeah, for sure.
I got one more question, but then let's go back to what term or phrase resonates with the core of who you are. Anything coming to mind?
No, can you give me an example of what would you say for that one?
For me,
I'm
that's a good question
completely
you're asking me. What term or phrase resonates with the? I miss being a shit disturber, but that goes back to childhood, right? Like I almost miss. I hate the fact that we've grown up.
Oh yeah, so I agree with that. Like just being a jokester.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
miss.
just being a jokester.
Because that was just done for the sake of doing. There
Yeah,
was no thought
just taking the
process.
piss,
It,
having a
it
laugh.
was done instinctively and it was done quickly and you had a laugh. You had a serious laugh as a result of it. And people don't do that these days. So we'll
Good
see.
answer. I'm going with you. I'm stealing yours.
Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates, Nicky?
Zero hangovers.
Wouldn't that be nice, eh? Zero hangovers.
Oh,
Nicky, absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing so much with us. And I encourage anybody who's listening to reach out to you and check out what you're offering. You're offering quite a bit, man. So I really appreciate
thank you
that.
so much, man.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've had fun.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much. Don't go just yet. I think that's it. There's anything else you want me to share? No, I think we've already shared all the deets. It's all good.
Yeah, no, everything's perfect.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Angelina. We're out of here.